Hey guys, it's Misty. So today we are going to be making this adorable little SuzyQ cardigan. This was done in sugar will cotton from Hobby Lobby. And I did this one in this beautiful yellow. I think it was called Daffodil. Today we are going to be using the same kind of cotton, but we're using Pink Canyon to do it with today. This is super simple. It comes together really easy, and let's just get started. Also, I am using a 4.5 millimeter hook. It is what is called for on the back of the yarn. And this yarn just makes things especially, it's just so soft and has a really good flow and drape to this fabric. So let's get going on this. We are going to be making the size newborn. Let me get this out of the way. All right, to get going on our little baby cardigan here, we are going to chain 29. So go ahead and chain 29, and I will meet you back up. So I have my chain of 29, and now we are going to be just placing a single crochet into every stitch along the chain, skipping this first one, going into this second one. So let's just go ahead and start right there, and then put one single crochet into every stitch along that chain. Alright, so we've got our single crochets in every stitch along the chain, and now we're going to start row 2. So for row 2, we are going to chain 2. That is not going to count as a stitch, and turn your work. Now, this is going to be a row of double crochets, and the entire top portion of this little cardigan is going to go single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, double crochet. You will always be starting with a single crochet, and depending on whether you want to size this up to fit, bigger sizes, you will always end with a single. So if you size up, you're going to be going 2 more rows, not just one. So we want to start with a single, and we want to end our increase rows with a single. So this is going to be an increase row on row 2, and we are going to do a row of double crochet, and we're going to increase into every third stitch. So let's just start that. We're going to do our first double into this very first one. Remember, our chain 2 does not count as a stitch, and it will not count as a stitch throughout the whole pattern. So there is 1, and then there's 2, and here's 3. We're going to increase. We're going to put 2 double crochets into that third stitch. All right, so now let's start again. There's 1 and 2 and 3. Put 2 in there. And 1 and 2. Whoop, got my yarn caught up. And there's our third one. Put 2 in there. And now we're back to 1 and 2 and 3. So keep going along just like that, putting 2 double crochets into every third stitch, and I will meet you back at the end. I've just finished with this last increase, and right now we have 4 stitches left, which is exactly where we should be. So let's finish this up here. There's 1 and 2 and 3. This is our increase. 2 into that one, and our last stitch remaining gets 1 double crochet. Now our next row is going to be a single crochet row, so we are going to chain 1 and turn. The only differences in our singles and our doubles is how many we chain up to turn. So in this round, this is another increase round, and we are going to increase with our single crochets. We're going to increase into every 4th stitch this time. So we're going to go right into, remember that chain 1 is not a stitch. We're going to go right into that very first one. There's 1 and 2, 3, and here's our 4th one. We're going to put 2 single crochets into that 4th stitch. Here we go again. There's 1 and 2, 3, and here's our 4th one. 2 stitches right into that 4th. 1, 2, 3, and there is the 4th one. Okay, we're going to keep going along like this, putting 2 single crochets into every 4th stitch all the way to the end, and I will meet you back before we end this row. All right, so we are at our last set of increase. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, here is 4, put 2 in that one, and right here we've got 1 more left over. So if you'll notice, we're putting 9 stitches in each row, and so it changes every time. But if it's not divisible by 9, then it's not going to be exactly at the end. Okay, I just wanted to explain that real quick. So our next row is going to be a double crochet row. So we're going to chain 2 and turn our work. So now this time we are going to increase every 5th stitch. So go ahead and start your double crochet right here in the very first stitch, because our chain 2 is not a stitch. There's 1, and then our next one here, there's 2, 3, 4. Ooh, about lost it that time, didn't I? And here is the 5th one, and we're going to put 2 double crochets into that 5th stitch, and then we're going to do it again. We're going to put an increase every 5th stitch all the way through the row, and I will meet you back here before we finish up. Okay, I am 2 stitches from the end, and this one right here is my 45th stitch. So that one is going to get my increase. There's 1 and 2, and then our last one will make 46. And there is that row. We should have now 55 stitches in our work. So our next increase is going to be a row of singles. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. And as you could probably guess, our increases are going to go into every 6th stitch. So we're going to start right here in this first one with 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is where we're increasing at. Okay, so go ahead and finish this row increasing in every 6th stitch. Since we have 55 stitches in our work now, we should do our last increase on number 54. I will meet you right back there to make sure our count's right. All right, we are at our 54th stitch right here, and that is our 6th stitch. And we're going to put an increase there, and then 1 single into our last stitch of the row, and this will leave us now with 64 stitches. All right, so next we are going to chain 2. Our next row is a row of double crochet. Turn your work. And now we are going to put our increases into every 7th stitch. So we're going into this first one with our first double. There's 1 and 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and there's our 7th. There's 1 and 2 in that 7th stitch. Since we're working into 64 stitches, our last increase should be into stitch number 63, so the one right before the end. So keep on going around increasing into every 7th, and I will meet you at the end of the row. All right, we are right here at stitch 63, and this is our 7th stitch. So we are right on target. That's where our increase goes. And then we have 1 more left in the row. All right, now we should be left, if you're counting up your stitches, we should be left with 73 stitches now in this last row. So chain 1, our next row is a single crochet. And in this one, and I'm sure you see the pattern, we are going to be increasing in the 8th stitch. So we're going to go right into that first one. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here is number 8. 2 single crochets into number 8. And that is the way it's going to go for the rest of this round. So I will meet you up right before the end. All right, so here is our 8th stitch where our increase goes, and it is on stitch number 72. So there's 1 and 2 into that 8th stitch, and then right here in our 73rd stitch, 1 single crochet. Now our next row, well, I should say this row now should be ending in 82 stitches. Okay, so our next row is going to be a chain 2. It is a double crochet, and let's see, we are going to be putting an increase in every 9th stitch. So we'll start right here in stitch 1. Whoops, I went all the way through there, didn't I? There's 1 double crochet, and there is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and here is our 9th stitch. So we're going to double up on that one, 2 into that one, and that is going to be the way of it. 2 double crochets in every 9th stitch for this increase round, and we should have an increase in stitch 81 and leave 1 remaining at the end. So I will meet you back there to make sure that our count is on target, and I will see you then. Alright, we are on stitch number 81, and that is going to be our increase. That is our 9th stitch. So we're going to put 2 double crochets right there and have 1 left over at the end right there. Alright, now our next row, well, this one now is going to have 91 stitches in the row now. Now our next one, we are going to be doing a row of single, and we're going to be increasing every 10th stitch. And as you can tell by the math, if we have 91 here and we're increasing every 10th stitch, then we should be having our increase on stitch 90 with stitch 91 remaining at the end. So let's go ahead and chain 1 and turn, and go ahead and put your first single right there, and we are going to be doing an increase, as I said, in every 10th stitch. So we'll do this first 10 together. There is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and here's our 10th stitch. So 2 single crochets in that 10th stitch, and that is going to be the count that we follow all the way to the end, and I will meet you there. Alright, here we are in our 90th stitch of this round, and we are putting our this makes our 10th stitch in our increase round. So there's 1 and 2 single crochets into that 10th stitch, and then we've got 1 remaining for 1 single crochet into that last one. So now we have 100 stitches. So if you were making your little cardigan for a size preemie, you could stop here with the top portion and move on to the remainder of the video following the increases. Move on to the part where we start separating our sleeves from the body of the project. This is going to be for a newborn size probably, I don't know if it'll go 0 to 3, but it'll definitely be newborn size. It's the one we're working on here today. So we're going to keep going for 2 more rounds here. So our next row is going to be a row of double crochet. So chain 2 and turn. And as per usual, we're going to go up 1 step in our increasing. So we are going to be increasing into our 11th stitch and every 11th stitch of this row. So we're going to put our first double right there in that first one. And then here is our second one. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oops, I lost it. 9 and 10. And in stitch 11 right here, we're going to put 2 doubles. There's 1 and 2 into that 11th stitch. And we're going to continue just like that, increasing every 11 stitches until we get to the end. All right, we are right here. This is stitch number 99 in our row, and this is stitch 100. We are, of course, adding in 9 stitches, so our last one is going to be right here in row 99. That is going to be our 11th stitch of the round. So we're putting 2 in that stitch, and we have the 1 remaining, 1 double crochet right there, and that is going to leave us with 109 stitches in this row. So we have 1 more row to go of increase, so we're almost there. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and in this increase row we're going to be doing our single crochets again, and we are going to increase in every 12th stitch around. We'll go ahead and do that first series together. Here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and here's our 12th stitch. So 2 single crochets in that 12th stitch, and that is going to be the count that we follow to the end of our row, and I will meet you back here at the end. All right, we are right on target here with our 12th stitch being in our next to the last. So we're going to put our last increase. There's 1 and 2 right in there, and then 1 remaining at the end. So there is our last single crochet of the increase rounds. So what you should have, let me scoot you a little bit out. What you should have is looking like this. Okay? Just like that. And we have 118 stitches here. Okay, so now it is time to join up and close off our sleeves. Okay, to get our sleeves made, we are right here at the end of our increase rounds. And to get our sleeves in place and to get our cardigan joined and looking like a sweater, we are going to chain one and turn our work. And this is going to be our joining round. So these are going to be done in all single crochets. So what we're going to do first is we are going to put a single crochet in the next 18 stitches. So one right there in the very first. There's 1, 2, 3, 17, and 18. There's our 18th stitch. Now, what we're going to do is make our armhole here, and we're going to do that by skipping the next 23 stitches. Okay, so we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. And right here into this next stitch after, we're going to fold over. Let me tighten that down. We're going to fold over and go right into this stitch right here like it was our very next stitch. Okay, we're not going to pull these two together. We're going to put a full single crochet right there, just like it's our very next stitch. Okay, so let me get it pulled through there. All right, and now we've made our little sleeve and we've joined the body of our sweater there on that side. So now we've got to do, here was one single crochet, we've got 35 more to do here. Okay, so there was one, we got 36 in all along the back of the garment. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 33, 34, 35. All right, here is 36. That is the last stitch in the back, in our back panel there. Okay, so now we are going to skip 23 again. We're going to skip these next 23 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. We're going to go right here into this next one and put our hook right there. Tighten that down a little bit. And that is where our next single crochet is going to go. It's the next in our row. So there's that one. And then we should have, that was stitch 1 out of 18. So we should have 17 more to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 16, and 17. That actually makes 18 stitches from our sleeve join throughout this panel. Okay, so now we can fold it in, and you can actually see this starting to take some shape. Okay, so this is now the yoke of our little sweater. And here's our sleeves right there. And then now everything below that is going to be the skirt area of our little cardigan. So the next part of our sweater here is going to be done in the Suzette stitch. Okay, so to do our Suzette stitch, we are going to first place a single crochet right here in that first stitch, and then we are going to go ahead and double crochet right back into that same stitch, just like that. Okay, and then we are going to skip this stitch here and go into the next with a single crochet. So single, and then yarn over and do a double right into the same. Okay, now skip the next, skip that one, go into the next with a single, yarn over, go right back into that same stitch with a double, skip the next stitch, go into the next stitch with a single and a double. Okay, skip the next, going into the next with a single and a double, skip one, go into the next, single and a double, skip one, go into the next, single and a double, skip the next one, go into the next with a single and a double. We're going to skip one and go right into the next, with a single and a double. We're right here at the sleeve join, but our stitches are still going straight across. We're going to ignore this sleeve over here. We're going to skip this stitch right there. We're going to skip that one and we're going to go right into this one. So we're going to single crochet and yarn over and double crochet right into that same space. Okay, we've just bypassed that arm and cinched ourselves together there. Okay, so we're going to skip the next, go into the next. We're going to do the same thing, a single and a double into every other stitch, skipping one in between. We are going to do that all the way across this back panel, and then we'll be joining through where the sleeve is. So I'm going to meet you up at the end of the back panel here before we get to our sleeve. So right here is the last Suzette stitch I did before the sleeve. Our next stitch is a skip, and our next one here is where we're going to put our stitch, bypassing this sleeve area here. We're going to go straight into there with a single and a double. Okay, so there's that one. And then we are going to do the Suzette stitch on the rest of the remainder of this last panel here. So skip, we've got a single and a double right there, skip the next one, a single and a double, single and a double in the next, skip the next one, single, and a double in the next. Now we've got one more little stitch right here on our row. Since I don't have room for my skip stitch, this would normally be it, and I want to close off this row. I'm going to just close it off with one single crochet, right like that, and it's going to work out just fine for what's coming next. So go ahead and chain one, and let's turn to start the next row. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to single crochet right in to this first single crochet right there. Okay, so single crochet right there, and we're going to go ahead and do a double into that same space. Now we are going to be skipping our double crochets, our tall ones, and we're going to be making our Suzette stitch into these single crochets over here. So we're going to skip the next stitch just like the last row. Now we're going to start skipping. We're going to skip the next, and we're going to take the next and place a single and a double. Skip the next, go into that next smaller stitch with a single and a double. Skipping the next, going into the smaller one with a single and a double. Skipping the next, going into the smaller stitch there with a single and a double. So all of the little short stitches from the row below are getting the single and double. Skipping this tall one, going into the lower one, single and a double. Okay, skipping this one, going into the lower one. There's our single and our double. And we are right here at our sleeve again on this one, but our sleeve is long since bypassed, so we're not even noticing it anymore. We're going to skip this tall one, go right into this small one with a single and a double, and we're already past our sleeve there, and we're just going right along. So we're going to keep going with our singles and doubles, skipping every other one, and I will meet you back at the end to see how we close off this row. Okay, so we are at the end of row 2 here of our Suzette stitch, and we've just got a couple more to go. We're going to skip this tall one here and go into this short one and single crochet and then double crochet, and very much then like what we did on the close of the row before, we're going to skip this tall one and we're going to go right into this single, and instead of doing the full stitch, we are just going to do a single crochet into that one. We're going to chain one and turn. All right, so much like what we did when we turned on the other row, we're going to go ahead and put both our single and our double into this first stitch. So we're going to go right here into this first one and single crochet and double crochet into that first one. Skip the tall one, skip the double, go into the short one, going right into that single right there for a single crochet and then a double crochet. and we are going to continue on just like this with our Suzette stitch, ending each row. Let me pull you out a little bit. Whoop. Okay, we're going to be ending each row with a single crochet. Okay, so the Suzette stitch is going to come up short at the end of every row. We're going to close every row with a single crochet, turn, and then put our single and double into that same stitch. Now, alright, so we are going to keep going with our Suzette stitch just like we have the last 2 rows, ending each row with a plain single crochet before the turn, and we have about 9 more rows to go. So I am going to meet you back at the end of 9 more rows, and we will see where we're at and get started with our sleeves. Alright, so here we are so far with our little newborn cardigan, and I've done 11 rows total, so I did 9 rows more after we got finished the last time. So from those 2 rows that we had done, I came down 9 more rows, and the measurement that we're going for here, so if your stitches are a little tighter, or if you need to add some rows, we're going for 8 inches from the back center up top down to the bottom. We're going for 8 inches total. Okay, so if your stitches are a little bit tighter, or you don't have quite the length that I've got here, you can just keep going for a couple more rows, or until you get to that 8 inches. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in, before we do our sleeves, I'm going to go ahead while we're still attached here and do our little scalloped edge. And that scalloped edge is not only going to give us that finishing look that we're looking for, but it's also going to provide the space for our buttons to be buttoned. It's going to make the buttonholes for us. So let me get reattached here. Alright, so all we're going to do to make our little scalloped edge is we're going to start right down here in at the bottom where we just finished our last row of the Suzette stitch. We're going to go from here and we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And we are going to come up, we're going to, right here is the stitch that we were in, and we're going to, and really what we're looking at here are spaces, right? So we're going to skip this next space, and we're going to go right in to this 3rd space. Okay, can you see that? We've got, this is the stitch we're in. We're going to skip this one, and we're going to make way right there in that little opening right there. Okay, so just go right into that little 3rd space, and we are going to slip stitch. Okay, and pull that down, and it's going to make just that little scalloped piece right there. All right, so chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then we are going to skip this next part right there. Okay, we're in this space. We're going to skip this one and go into, yet again, this little small space right there, and slip stitch. And really, you know, you can just fit it in wherever you are, as long as your little scalloped edge is sticking out far enough you know, to make that rounded edge there. And when it's up at the top, it's got to be far enough to go around your buttons that you're using. So but you don't have to be exact on this. You can sort of space them however you can. I think it's just easier, like this little stitch that we're in, skip the next big one, go into that little one. So we're always skipping a space. That's just sort of to keep it all even. But if you're going into a different space, or if you've got your spaced a little bit different, it's not going to hurt anything. We are up now into, we've passed the Suzette stitch, and we've been into these singles, and right in the middle of that double it looks like. So just space them along. Chain 3. Now I'm going to skip this, and I'm going to go into this little side stitch here right at the beginning, and now we're going to work our way around this collar. Okay, we've brought our scallop right to the edge here. Now we're going to chain 3, and we are going to skip this next one and go right down in to the next, and then we're going to keep on doing that all the way down the side, just like we did on the other side. Okay, it's time for our last scallop to go in, and right here on this last single that was in that bottom row, I'm just going to put my hook right in there and slip stitch into that last piece, and then I'm going to make another slip stitch, tighten it down, and tie off my work there. Now let's see where we are. So there is our little scallops. Let me and if they're kind of off or not quite even, like I had one sort of laying down, you can go in there and shape them out and just put them however you need them to be. But see, we're just going to have that little scalloped edge going all the way around. And then all the way down on this side. It's not really, you know, it's not supposed to be this big predominant thing. It's just supposed to give it a finishing edge coming off of here. And so it's going to look really sweet when we're done with it. Now, the next thing we need to do, and you can see our little scalloped collar standing up there now. How cute that is. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to do our sleeves on our arm. So go ahead and take up your yarn again, and when I join mine, I usually just make a slip knot, and usually I go in the back. So like I'll start at the very last stitch right there in the back. It's right in the armpit and not very noticeable, and that is where I'm going to start. And I'm just going to, so I've got my slip knot on here like that, okay, and I'm just going to go in here under this stitch and pull through, tighten my yarn down, and just slip stitch and tighten it down. So now I'm ready to just go on like normal. So I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet into that same stitch, and I'm going to yarn over and double crochet. Okay, so it really is not going to be very noticeable at all by the time I come around to join. But that will keep having it right here in the main bottom on the back of the armpit. That'll keep that hidden. So next we're going to skip this stitch right here, right on the bottom, and go right into the next with our single and double. We're going to go right around this little sleeve. We're skipping one and going into that one with a single and a double. We are going to go all around here with our Suzette stitch. We're going to end up making 2 rows around, but we are going to be changing it up just a little bit. So keep going around with your Suzette stitch. And I'm going to meet you when we get back to this little backside space where we would join. I'm going to meet you right there, okay? Okay, so I have come all the way around. I've got my skip stitch, and you'll notice right here that we are coming up odd, okay? So we're skipping this one and we're going into this one, but our stitch that we're supposed to connect to is right here beside of it. That's okay. Like I said, we start under the armpit here, so that if we do need to put an extra stitch, we can do that without much notice, okay? So we're going to skip this one and we're going to go along just like we normally would, and we're going to go right into this one and make that single crochet, and go ahead and make your double, okay? And then right here, our first single right there. Do you see that? Right here. Right here's that double. Here's the single. Here's the double. Looking at it from the side, the shorter one is the single. We are going to slip stitch right into that single. Right. Oh, if I can get my if I can get my hook in there, we're going to slip stitch right there. All right. Now, part of what makes this Suzette stitch look the way it does is the back and forth, okay? So if we work that in the round without turning our work, our look is going to be a little bit different. So we are going to connect, well, we've already connected, but now we're going to turn our work, okay? So go ahead and chain 1 and then turn your whole body of work around so that you're now crocheting on the inside. We're going to crochet around this way on the inside of our work, okay? So we can go ahead right here. We made our single crochet. We're going to go right back into that, and that stitch is going to be a little bit tight because we're going into the back side of it now. So just go right in there. It's a little bit tight, but that's okay. And make your single, and then yarn over and go ahead into that same space and make your double, okay? And now we're going to skip right here and go right into that single just like we always have done, just like that. And that is how we're going to do, skipping the double, going into the short one right there. And now we're just going to go back around this sleeve, and I'm going to meet you back before we join up. Okay, so here we are at our skip stitch, and what we're going to do now is we are just going to go right over into the top of our first single right there and squeeze our way in there, and we're going to join really tightly. Now slip stitch and pull down to fasten off. Snip. I always pull out a frame when I'm fastening off. All right. And there is our sleeve done. Okay, isn't that cute? All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and make the other sleeve to match this one. And then I'm going to weave in my ends, and I will be back with some buttons. All right, so I've got both my sleeves done now. And I've picked out some buttons to go with our little cardigan. So what I usually do for these buttons is I usually go on the row of double crochet. So since this is like pink and frilly, we're going to put these buttons on the left side, which is our right side facing. And let me turn them around a little bit so our leaves and flowers are going in the same direction. It probably wouldn't matter much, but there we go. And so what I normally do is I use the double crochets as button markers. So what I may do here on our preemie, the bottom double crochet was right here. We had one row on the bottom, and then I had one on the next row up, but these buttons are also bigger. You see that? So they're probably not going to land quite as perfect. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to space these out, and what I'm going to make sure of is that I've got a loop directly across from each button. Okay? And I also want to make sure that my loop is going to work. If it won't, that's not a big deal. So if my loop is too small, which these buttons are a little bit bigger, no, they'll work. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I've got a full loop across from each button. So I'm going to put one right here that's going to go with this loop. And next, I'm going to put one right here that's going to go with this loop. And I'm going to put one right here that's going to go with this loop. So we're like skipping a loop between. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go ahead and start with this bottom one because I've got it spaced just where I want it to be. And basically I use these double crochet lines as my measuring guide, but you can, if you want to be really exacting about it, you can just use a tape measure or whatever works for you. But I usually just try to go with how the work is looking. And I talked a little bit on the video where I did the little wool coat about putting buttons on baby garments, and just sort of my tips about getting those nice and tight and secure. I can link that down below if you'd like to watch that. Of course, you can use any technique that you use. So I'm just going to lay my button right here, right across from where this little fastener is, and I'm just going to make sure it stays right there. And I'm going to go underneath it. That is where I'm going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out and put my buttons on. Yep. And I will meet you right back. Alright, so I've got my buttons on and we are finished with our little cardigan. Is that not the cutest thing? Okay, so this one is the newborn size, and the stretch on this is going to probably give you more than just newborn. It's probably going to go, It might go up to 0 to 3, maybe up to a couple months. Here is our preemie. Okay, the difference in sizing here is simply a matter of where we stopped with our increase rows. Okay, so this little preemie, which I think is honestly just the cutest little thing, this we stopped here at row 9. Our single crochet right below this double was our last increase row on row 9, and that was the end of our increasing, and so we just didn't get any bigger than that all the way down. And then here with our other one, we kept on increasing for 2 more rows. Okay, so just giving it that extra width through here gave us even more little skirt and stuff down here. So if you're sizing on this, if you want something bigger than say 0 to 3, I would, you're always going to add 2 more rows of increase. Okay, so if you're wanting to go bigger, even up to like toddler sizes, all you need to do is add 9 stitches every row, just add 2 more rows of increase every time. So this one, our very last one, ended on 1 every 12. So if you want to continue on and make this bigger for say toddler size, you would do 14 stitches, and you would do every 12, then every 13, and every 14. Okay, so that's sort of how that will work. And the larger you take your increased stitches, the larger your little sweater's going to be. And that is how you control the sizing on here. So same pattern, same everything, same type of yarn. The only thing we did different here was we made it bigger, and we used different button selection. Another thing you can do to change it up is you could do this scallop, and maybe even your bottom row of stitches, and then your scallop you could probably do in a different color if you wanted to sort of mix and match on your colors there. And then you can choose, of course, any color buttons. So the possibilities are really endless. We have this hat that goes with the little yellow one. So our next video is going to be how to make this hat to go with it. We'll be doing it in the pink to go with this one that we've just made. And so be watching for that. That's going to be the next video up to do the matching hat for this. So if you like the video, if you would give it a like, I would so appreciate that. And also don't forget about the giveaway we have coming up. So be sure that you are subscribed and that you've hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on that, because it's going to be a really good one. All right, guys, go out today and do something you love. And don't forget to take care of yourself. Until next time, bye-bye.